My name is Jay Renee, and today the negotiation case between Taylor Swift and Spotify will be examined from the interests and positions of both parties, and we will analyze what went well and what went wrong between both the pop star and the popular streaming service. Let's jump in. The dispute between Taylor Swift and Spotify started in 2014 when Swift wanted Spotify only to stream her 1989 pop album, which sold 1.29 million in its first week for the paid subscription tier in Spotify. Taylor Swift felt that the free tier of streaming services did not pay the artist enough in royalties, which caused her to mistrust how streaming services would fully compensate an artist for their work. The questions and concerns of Swift led her to require Spotify to provide 1989 exclusively to paid subscriptions. However, Spotify denied Swift's request. As a result, Taylor Swift removed her entire music catalog from Spotify, making an obvious statement to fans and Spotify users. This situation may have helped regulate how and how much artists are getting paid in streaming royalties, creating a standard in the streaming industry today. Both Taylor Swift and Spotify held their interests and positions in this negotiation. Taylor Swift's bargaining position is to put her album exclusively for paying subscribers. That request was rooted in her interest to define an industry standard for all artists, that a fair amount of royalty be given to the artists for the work that they are providing. In addition, another one of Swift's interests is to better the relationship between streaming services and artists in the music industry. On the other hand, Spotify wanted to continue to provide the complete music catalogs from an artist for Spotify users despite the tier they are in, free or paid. However, in the negotiation with Swift, Spotify did not want a lack of Taylor Swift's music to affect business, allowing competitors to edge them on traffic and streams. In addition, Spotify did not want other big-name artists to follow suit by pulling music off the streaming service, as Swift has already done. One of the top concepts from class seen in this negotiation was the concept of BATNA. Taylor Swift had a solid alternative to doing business with Spotify. Short for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement, having a BATNA was Swift's most significant leverage in this negotiation between Swift and Spotify. Swift could sell her music on her own and stream through different platforms. This fact showed Spotify that they needed Swift more than Swift needed them. Mutual benefit is another concept seen in this case study. Things did not go so well for Spotify at first because Swift pulled her music from Spotify after they denied her request. However, after negotiations, Spotify still has a free tier for users of the popular streaming service. The final result showed that negotiations after this disagreement focused on how both Swift and Spotify can get what they need and want out of the partnership. Last, the concept of industry standard is more subtle here. What Taylor Swift was doing by taking a stance with her music is creating a standard amongst the streaming industry and platforms regarding the artists and the music industry. Because streaming was new for the music industry, it took an artist and other entertainment professionals like Swift's label, Big Machine, and her management team to create and withhold a standard in the industry across streaming platforms. Swift's camp has often called streaming a grand experiment, thus hinting at the need for neutral criteria. Two things from this negotiation went well. The first is Taylor Swift, an inspirer in communication, who shifted her power by making a bold move and a bold statement to Spotify. The decision to remove her catalog affected Spotify and sent a message to other streaming platforms concerning her music and artist payout throughout an access-based music model. On the other hand, Spotify was persistent in swaying Swift back on board with streaming altogether. When negotiation is not or has not gone your way, one of the best tactics is to sell why your product or service is beneficial to a consumer, partner, and industry. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek traveled to Nashville to meet with Swift's team and invited her to their headquarters in Stockholm to explain Spotify's model and the evolution that streaming brings to the music industry. What went wrong and why I feel it took nearly 3 years to get Swift's music back on Spotify and most other streaming platforms is an inflexibility from both parties during an era when the shift in how listeners consumed music was prevalent. In this technological world, it is challenging to be proactive rather than reactive because let's face it, we often don't know what's next until it's here. Taylor Swift and her team may have considered being more open to the change while gradually bettering the streaming requirements for artist royalties. Still, streaming platforms should never underestimate the power that an artist has on the success of its platform. An agreement was reached between Spotify and Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift eventually not only added her catalog back to Spotify, but allowed for the 1989 album to be streamed as a thank you to her fans for selling over 10 million copies. This agreement has not only fostered a long-term relationship between Spotify and Swift, it has encouraged partnerships between labels and streaming platforms, as well as artist to artist and artist to other streaming platform relationships. Spotify has gone public, allowing for share trades, which add to the advancements that have bettered both the music industry and streaming platforms. These improvements in streaming will encourage further growth in how music is purchased and consumed. Thank you for watching. If you would like to dive into this case more on your own, here are a few references I used to get you started.